So a good friend of mine died a few days ago, and I've just been kind of processing that. And when I say a good friend, it's kind of not the right word because on the one hand, we hadn't talked in, however many years it's been. But on the other hand, 20 years ago when we were real young, 18, 19, 20, probably about as close as two people can get without being family, if you kind of get what I'm saying. And when it comes to this video, in my mind, I'm going back and forth like, should I even be making this video? Should I say her name? Should I not say her name? Because it's so fresh. Like, what's respectful to do? Do I want to even talk about it at all? But I think at the end of the day, if you have a YouTube channel, you probably want to talk about something real every once in a while instead of just trying to be an entertaining jackass or whatever, because otherwise, what's the point of having a YouTube channel or making art or doing anything? So I'm going to just kind of talk about her abstractly, though. And if we're friends in real life, then you know who I'm talking about. And if we're just internet friends, then you didn't know her anyway. But this person was one of those larger than life people. I don't know if you know anybody like that, but they'll just go to like a party and be the life of the party and make friends with everyone and get along with everyone and kind of be like a nexus for other people to connect. And somebody, not somebody with like great influence or power, but there's people that just like everybody knows and everybody kind of likes. And whatever happens in your life, whatever personal problems you have with somebody, especially we're talking about like when we were young, doesn't, to me, like, you go through life and it's very lonely. Life is a very lonely thing to go through, especially if you're trying to be like an artist, as this person was. Art is a very lonely profession because you're just spending a lot of time with yourself and with your own thoughts. And even when it comes to something like filmmaking, you go out and shoot with other people. That's all fun. That's all cool. But that's like such a small part of the job compared to all the time you're spending editing the movie or in pre-production. And I know a lot of filmmakers like to kind of cut all that stuff out and get right to it. But even with like a social art form like filmmaking, it is really personal and it is really lonely. And if you're making good art, it is going to be personal and it is going to be lonely. So, I have some things to say about this person and some things he might have said back in the day that kind of make me think about and reflect on their life a little bit. And the things I just said, like when we were 19 or 20, we were out like by the park or whatever, and she just kind of like completely broke down and started crying and stuff. And it's because that in that moment, she was really feeling like the existential loneliness a lot of us feel. And when you're young especially, you feel things so deeply, but you suddenly realize, maybe I am kind of alone in this world. She said something like, you only care about me because we're together now, but you're not going to remember me, or you're not going to care in the future, which is now. I'm making this video 20 years later. And I remember her saying that at the time and kind of agreeing with it. But now that I've had 20 years to reflect on it and think about it, I don't know if that's necessarily true, because everybody is, like I said, you're kind of alone with your own thoughts. That's kind of mostly what life is. Even if you have friends and family, like a lot of your time's just spent with you alone in your mind or going through the world. It's kind of just you, and it's great to be with people. And that does seem really lonely, and it does seem really existential. But the way I kind of look at it is, it's not necessarily the case, because when it comes to people in my life, this person, anybody else, that I've got my wife, I've got my family and whatever friends I have now, but anybody who's been in my life appeared in it at some point at the past, even if it was 20 years ago, especially if it was 20 years ago, a time when you're young and kind of like forming your own opinions of the world and trying to figure out your identity and who you are and what you want to do with your life. The people you meet during that time, college, maybe high school too a little bit, but really like college is when you start to become an actual adult and an actual person. The people that you meet during that time in your life, they kind of stick with you. The farther back you go in time, the more people kind of stick with you. And maybe I'm just a weird guy, but I do think about, people from time to time. Even if it was somebody we didn't really have too much of a relationship, they'll just pop into your mind every now and then. You'll wonder how they're doing. And then lately, as I get a little older, sliding into middle age, I have been trying to like reconnect with people a bit, call people that I know from back in the old days, see if they kind of feel that same connection. And I think people probably do. You get embarrassed about it. You get embarrassed about not having spoken to somebody for years, and you call them up and you say, hey, what's going on, man? And then it's like time doesn't really matter anymore. You're kind of just back in the same place. And unfortunately, when it comes to this person, we didn't leave that relationship on bad terms or nothing. It's just the circumstances of life kind of just prevents you from getting in touch with people sometime, or like reconnecting with them. And I could have easily done it. I could have easily called her up and said, hey, what's going on? How you doing? What's going on with your life? Not that I'm saying that it would have meant a whole lot or changed a whole lot, but it is something that I could have done. And, now I'm never going to have the opportunity to do that. But at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that's okay, because we had whatever time we had together, whatever time we had together, and life and society and everything kind of really tries to make you focus on the present moment. Everybody's going from moment to moment and experiencing things, and that's generally the advice people will give you. Try to live in the moment, be in the moment. But to me, things that happened in the past are just as real and just as valid as things happening now, things happening on the future. Maybe that sounds a little wacky to say. It goes against common experience. And I know things like people's memories are pretty fallible, and maybe two people aren't going to remember things exactly the same way, but that core experience is in you somewhere. And the people that you meet throughout your life, and you share experiences, you're in them somewhere. We're all kind of connected in that way. And when you talk about being an artist, and you talk about whatever art form you want to talk about, writing, she was a painter and a sculptor. I'm trying to get more into filmmaking. It all comes from the same place. And I think it's all, the motivation behind it is all kind of the same thing. Eventually, you start off doing it from ego, or maybe you're just interested in it. But at the end of the day, you're just making art to try and make the world a little less lonely of a place, make people feel something, like they're connected to something, and it all isn't just so lonely and existential. And all the work she's done, I don't know how much work it was, probably like maybe thousands of pieces. They'll go out into the world and they'll remain, and people will see and experience that. But at the same time, like the things we all want to be remembered for, these abstract ideas of having a legacy or doing work that people remember, it's not really you. You make a piece of art and you send it off in the world, and then it just kind of exists. And it was a piece of you at the time, couldn't have been made without you. But once it's out there, it no longer really has all that much to do with you. And if people remember you at all, the essence of you, it's not going to be ever going to be the work that you did, even though I know that's kind of like what a lot of people want to be remembered for. I think it's more just the experiences people had with you and the perception of you. And I'm not even going to say whether or not you were a good person or a nice person, because really good, really nice people are boring, right? Like, who wants to be a goody two shoes getting run over? But just fun to be around with, and the life of the party, and you have a fun personality, and you're not too much of a jerk, and you try to get along with people, and people feel something when they're with you. You make them laugh, you make them smile. Sometimes you make them cry. That's inevitable. That's part of life. Like we're all, especially when you're young, we're all learning how to like not hurt each other and not be so selfish and all these things, you know. That's part of growing up and being a young adult. And these are the times that like I lived my life, and these experiences I had with her and everybody around her. It was like, you know, it was a local community college. She moved on to UCLA Art School. I stayed here and did nothing. But at the time, you know, even just like a crappy little community college, you end up finding people, you know, you get connected into a scene, and these are your friends or your creative collaborators or the people you hang out with or whatever. And it's pretty great, you know. I don't think you go through life, it's really hard to replicate that ever again. You'll go get a job and you'll meet people at work in your career or whatever. And maybe if you're in a more creative field, maybe you find some more true friends, some true collaborators later on in life. I'm sure you do, but just something about being really young that I know it's been said 1,000 times that youth is wasted on the young, that kind of old adage that gets thrown out. But it's true, you know, like oftentimes those were the best years of your life. And somebody moves away, even somebody dies, it doesn't negate the fact that those times existed, you know, and those days existed, and those memories are in your head. And as long as the person's still around, you can go back and reconnect with them. And if they move on, which happens in life, you know, this isn't the first like close friend or a relative of mine that's died unexpectedly, unfortunately, you know, these days, especially with all the problems going on in the world. It's just hard to kind of exist sometimes and not feel lonely and not feel despair, you know. But this is really the first person who was in my life from that formative period. So it just stings like, it just stings just a little bit more than somebody maybe you met a little later on in your life. Not to say that they weren't your good friend either, but it does, you know, it does hurt. I'm sure it also hurts when your close relatives die. I really still have yet to go through all that stuff, although we're probably getting close to that too, and I'll deal with that when that happens. But that's life, you know. That's a huge part of life, and the older you get, the more you're going to have to deal with the experience of, I'm not going to say letting people go either, because I don't think you ever have to let anybody go. Like, they can always just be inside you somewhere, and you can take all those experiences and carry them on forward with you. And that's kind of how people go on anyway, you know. I think also another cliche thing, but that's kind of how people continue to persist and exist. And that's why people have children and grandchildren. It's not so much this bullshit like I got to carry on the family name or the family legacy. It's just like, I remember grandma, she was pretty cool, or whoever it is, you know. And now you exist and you influence people in their lives. They go on and influence people, and it's just like this never-ending cycle of people influencing other people. That's really all humanity and civilization is, you know. That's all art is. That's all literature is, films, movies. However you want to try and encapsulate that and save it. And the work thing to me is so interesting because, you know, people from the past, you could say Leonardo da Vinci was a good painter. Michelangelo was a good sculptor. Everybody loves Shakespeare. We really have no like idea, I guess maybe through letters and stuff, but we really have no idea of who these people actually were as people, like the essence of them, their personalities, how it felt to like go to a party with, I don't know, Socrates or somebody and talk about philosophy or something. And that's interesting because now we're in the digital era where people aren't even remembered for their work so much anymore as they are remembered for being personalities and talking into a camera. And maybe you want to try and do some actual work or art on top of that, but it's kind of flipped itself on the head, and we're in this age now where you can get famous and you can get rich just for being you, being a personality. Basically, you don't even have to be like an actor or a comedian anymore. You just kind of talking into the camera and people see you. That's a strange place to be. And this person who passed away, I think she was like a public person as far as art goes, but I don't think she had, I could be wrong, but I don't think she had like Facebook or Instagram or social media anymore, because I haven't seen her on there. And a lot of people are making that choice these days to just kind of cut the cord of all that, realistically, let's call it bullshit. And yet you still go out there into the world and you try to do your thing without the extra added whatever social media is, whatever you can manipulate that into like paving the way for something. You know, you just go out there, do it traditionally. Go out there and bang on art gallery doors and network and stuff, because you can still live like that. You don't have to try and become internet famous to do anything. It's just one possible route, and that's why I don't feel comfortable talking about her in depth right now as a person. Anything I say would just be like a facsimile anyway. You know, it's never going to be the real person, because the real person, again, was the person I interacted with, talked to, was there face to face, spent time with, you know. And the internet and internet celebrity, parasocial relationships, all these things, they're never going to be a substitute for any of that, you know. It can be some kind of approximation. I don't really know you, you don't really know me, but I'm communicating and I'm talking to you with anyway. I'm trying to get a little piece of myself out there. Maybe you comment, I respond to your comment, but it's a poor substitution for the face-to-face experience of actually being with people, you know. And I think that's why when you talk about loneliness, the loneliness epidemic, increased drug use, fentanyl, alcohol abuse, all these things, that's a big part of it, is this fucking technology we've all embraced so willingly and so easily that maybe we didn't really see the repercussions of that until it's kind of too late at this point. Not to say humanity can't change and people can't reject that, but we're certainly living in a time where the fake reality of the internet and social media and all these things starts to feel like the reality, and then being with actual people that you care about and love and share things with and have a good time with, that starts to become, if not less of a reality, but less of something that happens, unless you're lucky enough to have, you know, close friends, a family, significant other. How far does it extend past that anymore? How much community is there? It still goes on. It still goes on. People have things that they do. They put their kids into sports. They go to church or whatever it is. It still exists, but more and more we're kind of been offloading everything onto the internet, including like, you know, entertainment, especially filmmaking, art, all these things. You just kind of get filtered through the internet, and it's kind of a bullshit filter, and it kind of turns everything into like pixelated mush a little bit. This is why people hate AI, and I don't want to go off on a million tangents on this video, but I do feel just kind of lucky to have lived in a period of time when I was in college, when I was a young, not even 21 years old yet, you know, to have experienced this period in time where maybe we had some flip phones or whatever, but we definitely didn't have smartphones. We definitely didn't have the internet. If you actually wanted to hang out with people, you had to just call them on the phone or go to their house, or there'd be like a spontaneous gathering after class or whatever it was. And now we're kind of living in this world where a lot of communication is just done through the phone now, you know, it's not real. And I just feel real lucky to be the last generation, I think, that got to experience that in its entirety. Social media, Facebook, all these things didn't really become a thing until after I got out of college, entered the workforce. I was just getting a smartphone for years and years and years, just because I knew deep inside of me the quality of my life was going to go down. And yet at some point you're kind of just forced into it because at some point you need a phone to order things from a restaurant or check your email with two-factor authentication or whatever. And it just sucks, man. But at the same time, I am glad that it's around a little bit because I've been reconnecting with people through Facebook. Like, I just messaged them on Facebook. I don't have their fucking phone number anymore, you know? I would probably need to go through a series of people to get somebody's phone number. So, and that was its original like intent. That's the original use of Facebook, was we're going to keep you together with your friends and family. And it became something much more sinister, much more evil than that, as everything that you commodify does, you know. And now here I am in YouTube talking about somebody trying to commodify them a little bit, but really that's not what I'm trying to do. I hope that's not what I'm trying to do or how people perceive it. I'm just trying to get my own personal thoughts about the world out there. And in the future, you know, if this channel ever gets any kind of eyeballs, maybe I'll make like an actual video about this person and their life and their art, you know, and get that out there just to do it, you know, because I think you owe your friends that much, even if you haven't talked to them in however many years it's been. It's okay, you know. It's okay. That's just how life goes. Everybody just gets busy and distracted, and you lose touch with people. They fade away. I got a lot of friends or a few friends who just moved away. It's impossible to even get a hold of them because they don't have social media. Nobody has their phone number. They just kind of disappeared, and they've got another life now. I guess sometimes people choose to do that, but, you know, I kind of feel like maybe it's a midlife crisis thing, but I kind of feel like at some point maybe you do want to give people from your past a call, unless they were all assholes and you hated all of them from shit they did to you in high school. But even then, they're probably okay now, you know? Like, people grow up, become better people, like learn how not to be such jerks. Everybody's a jerk when they're young, especially, you know. I was a jerk. You were a jerk. Everybody's a jerk. And that's the other thing about all this. Like, I never really saw much of a point in holding a grudge against anyone for anything, you know. We're all just kind of like learning. We're all making mistakes, and society and the internet puts us all in this place where we all need to be like on our best behavior one time. You make one small mistake, you screw up once, and that's kind of, sometimes that's it now. Like, your life's over because it went viral and you're ostracized for the one bad thing you did. So again, very thankful my generation, last generation, that didn't really have to worry about that, because your parents, your grandparents, everybody, you know, you fucked up at some point when they were like 16, 17, 18, 19 years old. I guarantee you that. It's just nobody knows about it because it didn't get posted to the internet because the internet didn't exist. But the internet's not real life, you know. It's not real life. It's not people. It's just an approximation of real life and people. And maybe we should all just get off of it a bit and take some time. Like, everybody's so fucking distracted these days all the time too. Maybe just take some time every now and then, just reflect on your life and the people in it and the times you've shared. And something like this, you know, a sudden death, that's obviously going to make you do that anyway, but maybe you don't really need something like that to happen to you to force you to do that. Maybe it's something we could all be practicing a little more often, you know. Pretty sad, makes me pretty sad, just that the person is not going to exist anymore, be around anymore, at least in physical form. But I'll keep them, you know, I'll keep them here a little bit. I'll keep them here a little bit. And that'll be like, you know, anybody I meet, that'll be where I put them. And, you know, that's where they'll be, if not in the world somewhere. You like to think that people are out there somewhere still kicking around doing something, but if not there, at least in here. And that's about all you can do when it comes to this kind of stuff, I think. And, you know, I'm a jerk just making a YouTube video about it. But again, hopefully these thoughts are like thoughts other people have from time to time, and maybe just a stupid YouTube video, but maybe now you feel a little slightly less alone than you did before. And if not, read a book or something, call somebody up from your past, see how they're doing. Like, I think for me especially, I've always had a hard time just maintaining relationships with people, because it's like, who wants to talk to me? Who wants to hang out with me? How much should you be like calling somebody? It's a little easier if you're a man, I think, because you just go like years and years without talking to like your male friends, and you just hit them up, and it's like you never went anywhere. It's kind of just the relationship is where it's at. Whereas with women, maybe it's more of a like you kind of got to tend that garden a little bit more. But I'm just trying to be a little better with it. Let people know that I appreciate their existence. I appreciate that there are people out in the world, and all the times we had together, and all the times we shared. And that's about all you can really do in this life. That's all that really matters. Again, like, you call yourself an artist, or you try and go out there and make things. It's all just like a personal process, though. And if anybody finds any value out of it, people you don't know, people you do know, that's great. But when it comes to the actual stuff of life, what's kind of been missing, and what's kind of getting left behind with technology, is that the actual stuff of life is just being with people, hanging out with people, talking to people, going to do things with people. That's all the stuff that's going to matter. That's all the stuff anybody's going to ever remember about you. That's probably mostly what you're going to remember about anybody else. You could admire the work they do, admire the art and all that kind of stuff. But really, like, when you think about somebody, is that mostly what you're thinking about? And I think the answer is no. You're thinking about the actual person, who they were, what it meant to you to be with them, and all these things. And that's about all any of us can do. So probably been talking. Well, I've been talking for way too long. I'll go back to trying to be goofy or whatever in the next video, I promise, or whatever. But every once in a while, this is kind of what it's going to be.